Hi, everybody. Thank you for subscribing. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Politics with Sherry Jacobus. And if you're not subscribed yet, I hope you'll do so. Just hit that button. So a lot going on, obviously, in the news. And I think that it's going to be another good news day. I want to report the good news. I wouldn't say good news, but hopeful news. Now, admittedly, when we have to kind of note or praise the press or a Republican for or some Democrats for doing the obvious right thing, what they're supposed to be doing, it does feel like when you're praising a little kid for doing the simplest thing, like, oh, good boy, such a good job. But this is where we are. But a couple things are happening which are interesting. First of all, just to note the release of the hostages. Trump has gotten 20 released. A reminder that Joe Biden, as president, got 148 hostages alive released. And our media does not seem to want to focus on that at all. They're still afraid of Trump. But we've seen some progress. So here we have Trump saying, first of all, the way it's supposed to be done, I'm going to read Malcolm Nance's response to Trump's Truth Social post. When Trump says, I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay. Trump is doing this because what they want to do is to be able to take anybody and say, oh, we think you're Antifa, so we're going to haul you off. We're going to beat you. We're going to mace you. We're going to shoot you. They're now escalating their language to I think what they want to do is they want to shoot somebody or a lot of people on Saturday's No Kings rallies that are going on all over the country, October 18th. Okay, so Malcolm Nance, who is a terrorism expert, he says, terrorism expert here, you cannot designate an idea as a terrorist group. There is no organization called Antifa. There is no leadership or funding path. There is no membership. Also, there is no law in America to charge terrorism. Ask Luigi. What he is doing, this is what Malcolm says, what he is doing is setting the stage to designate any American as a terrorist. That is fascism. Okay. That is something that we should all be repeating on a loop. Not to the bots and trolls that they have on social media, because they aren't real. They are just paid, they're not real people, and they're there to amplify the message and make it seem as if there's widespread MAGA support. And that then does sometimes result in widespread MAGA support because they look around, they go, oh, there's safety in numbers. They pretend the bots and trolls are real or they don't know. All right. But here's where I think it gets interesting. And I think that if there starts to be escalated violence, that we're going to see more and more MAGA turn away. We've talked before about how young Christian MAGA are very disturbed about the Epstein files, but also very specifically disturbed looking at the violence of Trump's Gestapo, of ICE agents, and now the National Guard being sent into cities to, I guess, take up arms against American citizens. Young MAGA don't like this. So that's important to note. So here's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, we're actually using her as an example, but she does have an audience. She gained her following, and now she's sounding a little bit more like us. She's on one of the Sunday shows, and she knows that Republicans don't work for the American people. And she said she's actually putting the blame on the Speaker and Leader Thune in the Senate. This should not be happening, because a reporter asked her that directly. And she said, absolutely, we, meaning the Republicans, we control the House, we control the Senate, we have the White House. This doesn't have to be a shutdown, but what we have to do is we have to work for the American people. My gosh, this is coming from Marjorie Taylor Greene. So something happened with her, something happened with her. Sometimes it's as simple as just kind of getting the word that Trump is not going to protect you or help you. And so maybe he's thinking, oh, we'll have her primaried if she goes too far. So you kind of have to put your finger in the air to see which way the wind is blowing. Where is your support? And if she can respond to constituents back home, and if that becomes stronger and more impactful than just obeying Trump, then it's harder for him to primary and he'll back off because Trump doesn't like to work hard and he's chicken and, anyway. The other thing that we have going on, and I think this is very, very interesting, the press. Now, the press has not been our friend. They caved to MAGA real early on. First of all, we know they loved the ratings and the clicks that they got starting in 2015, which is a big reason why we have Trump in the White House and we have devolved into authoritarianism and fascism. But at some point, when it starts affecting them, remember how we've said a lot that MAGA starts paying attention when some of these policies start affecting them, like the farmers who voted for Trump. They're losing everything now. First, they lost their workers, and now because of the tariffs, so he's got to bail them out, right? Now they like socialism. This is happening with a lot of people, some Hispanics, Latinos that voted for Trump, and they or their loved ones get hauled away. Yeah. So Marjorie Taylor Greene has figured it out. She knows that a lot of her MAGA base back home very soon are going to be getting notices that their insurance premiums are doubling or tripling because of Republicans. So you might say that very cynically that she's just saving herself. Well, yes, of course she is. She's not doing this to be noble. She's not a noble, good person. But anyway, I want to point out that the New York Times, okay, has refused to sign this weird press policy that Hegseth at the Pentagon, Trump's Pentagon, wants to have force the press to sign for just doing regular reporting. I mean, finally, the press, again, when it hits them, they start realizing, whoa, acting like fascism and authoritarianism is like a new thing with Trump. But here's what the New York Times Washington bureau chief Richard Seabuson wrote. He said, journalists from the New York Times will not sign the Pentagon's revised press policy, which threatens to punish them for ordinary news gathering protected by the First Amendment. Since the policy was first announced, we have expressed concerns that it constrains how journalists can report on U.S. military, which is funded by nearly $1 trillion in taxpayer dollars annually. The public has a right to know how the government and military are operating. The Times is dedicated to pursuing the public interest through deep, fair reporting, unwavering pursuit of the facts. Well, yeah, the New York Times has actually been pretty darn good to Trump. But now when it gets real, when it got real for other people and other groups, they didn't care. Now it's gotten real for them. So other news organizations, the Washington Post, New York Times, The Atlantic, and CNN said their reporters also will not sign the Pentagon's restrictive press policy. They say that it infringes on their First Amendment rights. Okay, this is true. But here's the thing. This is where it's going to get real difficult for Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. Newsmax. My God, Newsmax, the far right wing MAGA authoritarian, and the place where all those guys that get fired from Fox News for the Me Too stuff, or they get fired from other places, they land there. I mean, you would not believe all the stuff that I know about some of these top personalities there. Anyway, here's Newsmax on the Pentagon press policy. Newsmax has no plans to sign the letter. We're working in conjunction with other media, probably meaning the New York Times and the Washington Post, media outlets to resolve the situation. We believe the requirements are unnecessary and onerous and hope that the Pentagon will review the matter further, which I predict they will. All right. So the media is standing up to Pete Hegseth and Trump on basically letting them dictate what they can or can't report from the Pentagon. Good. Again, I feel like we're praising a child. Good boy, for the very simple thing, that the stuff that should just be standard. Like, how do we even get in this position? So, and the other thing, remember George Stephanopoulos? Remember how they caved to Trump and they paid, they settled? Remember that? Even George Stephanopoulos. Well, maybe over the course of months, he's grown a spine, because if you saw the interview or saw clips from the interview that he did Sunday with Vice President J.D. Vance, it was pretty good. This was the journalism how it's supposed to be. So let's praise them for doing the basic things that they're supposed to be doing all the time. George Stephanopoulos did his job. And he said to JD Vance, who, when he was asked about Tom Homan accepting the $50,000 bribe, and he was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September of 2024. And JD Vance wouldn't answer the question, kept saying, "Oh, you're going down a rabbit hole." You know, he was just protecting a thief who was on the Trump cabinet, a criminal who got caught. And so Stephanopoulos says, "It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000 as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning." And he literally cut off the mic, cut off JD Vance's mic. He wasn't going to take that BS anymore, letting him just sit there and lie and evade. And quite frankly, Trump and his administration and his allies do that all the time because the press has let them get away with it for literally a decade. So I'm pointing out just these few simple things that sound like pushback. Because yes, we want to encourage them the way you encourage a child for normal good behavior. We do have to treat the American press like children sometimes, but you know, this is good stuff. If it helps turn us around, remember, we've long said many, many times, many of you, you say this a lot in the comments. One of the reasons that we're in this horrible situation that we're in right now with Trump and why we've lost our country is because of the press, is because of American media caving, okay, to the fascism. It still might be too late, but I'm going to fight tooth and nail. But anyway, these are just a couple of things. Again, are these game-changing, big, huge things that on their own are going to save us? No. I'm not even sure if little by little enough of these things can save us. But I guess it's like at least it's like trying to plug up a bunch of holes in a boat that's sinking. And this is maybe plugging up one of those holes. Maybe that's not a good analogy, but that's just what came to mind. Anyway, thanks for tuning in.